Welcome back to Bazooka Kickboxing and MMA. Today's episode, powered by Hayabusa, is about sneaky kicks, throwing kicks so your opponent can't see them. In today's video, we're going to talk about sneaky kicks, throwing kicks so your opponent can't see them. A lot of times when we learn kicks, we learn the traditional classic position, the way you throw your hips, the way you step, get on the calves, turn your shoulder, hand out. Those are all important concepts to throwing a good power round kick. But a lot of times, you might not land those kicks because that is the defense we learn. We learn how to block those traditional round attacks. It's very simple. We see them. But in today's video, I'm going to try to give you kicks where your opponent can't see them. And I think that is where we see those big spectacular knockouts with the kicks, right? We have to be a little bit unorthodox sometimes to land. So the video today is about 5 different ways you can sneak that kick so your opponent can't land them. And it's about sneaking them in. And the first way, which I'm kind of known for, is throwing a round kick without having to pivot too much. A lot of times that power traditional round kick is made for you to throw that big power. So you see those Thai fighters, you know, they might be only 120 pounds, but they're blasting these big power round kicks off the arms, which look good, but you know the angle, and the damage of that kick happens because they don't care. You try to block that, they're gonna kick right through your forearm. They crack the shell, right? They break down your defense with the power round kick. But if you watch the way a lot of times I kick, I don't pivot too much. So what I do is I turn my hip inside and my heel up without having to pivot on the lead foot. What happens when you pivot on your lead foot too much, it becomes too slow. And it's very, telegraphed because you can see the technique. So by pivoting less or, maybe even just going up, what happens now is it's faster. And by pivoting less, it lets me keep my lead shoulder in front. If I keep this lead shoulder in front, boom, you don't even see the kick. A lot of times people use this shoulder turn as the tell of the kick. But if I sit here, right, look, I could throw this kick without moving my shoulder, which means I'm pivoting. I'm not pivoting, I'm pivoting less, and I could still land the kick. So that's a sneaky way. And after you spar with me, a lot of times people will say, I knew the low kick was coming, but I had no idea, because what's happening is I didn't give them a tell that I was going to throw them. So by not pivoting too much on your round kicks, that's the easiest way to sneak that kick in. Now, the second way that I like to mix is with angles, right? Usually when you throw your round kick on the pad, it's right here, right? We know you got your low kicks, your body kicks, and your head kicks on 3 classic angles, very horizontal. Now, one of the other kicks that I throw and talk a lot about is the 45-degree kick. So if someone's hands are here, we learn on pads to throw everything round. So when you take the pads or the bag, now when you put it on a body, you're basically hitting elbow every time you throw a round kick on the pad. So the 45 kick, even by sitting here, one, I don't have to pivot much, and I can get underneath the elbow. So it's quicker, it's faster, it might have less power, but it's landing, and that's what we want. It's sneaky and it's landing, and the good thing about it is it might create something else. That 45 kick might not be the damaging shot, but all of a sudden, boom, that 45 kick smacks the liver. 1, I could drop my opponent with a liver kick, or 2, they have to think, drop here. Now the second kick, I can bring high and create a knockout. So creating angles. The other fun angle that you could mix on is the question mark kick. If you have the flexibility, the dexterity in your legs and your hips to do that, that's a fantastic shot. Why the question mark kick is so effective is because you can't block the angle of it. What happens now, all of the kicks, round kicks, 45 kicks, a little bit more easier, but this question mark kick that comes down, you have to think it comes down in this direction. So even if your hand is up, that question mark can come down and clip the temple, right? Which is why it is a damaging shot. Same thing with elbows, right? If you throw a horizontal elbow, it's a little bit easier to block. But if you start cutting down, on these downward elbows coming this way, it's very difficult to block those shots, right? That's why they are so effective. Now, the third way to sneak your kick in is by blinding your opponent. So how do you blind your opponent? Well, the way you do it is with straight punches. So a lot of times when I'm sparring and I really want to attack the leg or create a body attack, What I do is I throw these tempo rhythm jabs. And I won't throw a single because it's easy to parry, easy to block in your opponent. But if I keep throwing these rhythm tempos, straight punches, in my opponent's face, what happens eventually, it keeps blinding them, right? Too many shots, and they think here, they get frustrated by the punches, and then you could mix in the attack. So by blinding them with straight punches, you can do what you want. Usually I like to mix the low kick, but if it gets frustrating now and they lift their hands up, it creates a body attack as well, even, body punches and rips, but it's about kicking. So blind them with straight punches with off rhythm tempo, okay? There's singles, doubles, but if I play with the rhythm, with feinting and get them to blink and kind of a visual overload, right? It's distracting. Like if something's in your face, it just creates so many openings, it's distracting, it's frustrating, so it's a good way to sneak those kicks in. Now, the fourth way I'm going to discuss is the head off center line. And an example that comes to mind very quickly is TJ Dillashaw and the way he kind of moves his head and kind of just creates different angles. And it's interesting because it's different and it's unorthodox. So what happens now is usually if I throw my jab, the right kick comes, or the cross, the left kick. That's almost like same side cadence style striking. So it's easy. Block, 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 right? Everything comes left, right, left, right. Very predictable, very easy. Now, if I move in my head and my head's off center line, usually the attack means it's coming from my left side, because by slipping here, I load up my left kick, I can load up my left punch. But maybe by throwing my right hand, my head is offline, and then I throw my head kick, I'm creating an off rhythm tempo, right? Boom, and I hit. Or I can come here and attack. So by moving my head, I get a reaction from my opponent, and from that reaction, usually they slip into the attack. So usually use these punches, use the head, and then create off-angled attacks. Offline, right? Even though my head's moving, I might step out. I might step this direction, and you're going to get a different reaction from your opponent, and it just opens up the angle. So moving the head, creating the angle is just going to make sure the kick or the attack comes from an angle that they're not used to attacking, or maybe they can't see. They're not used to it. If my head slips here, and even if it's set up properly, 1, 2, boom, hard liver, 1, 2, boom, slip here, then all of a sudden my head kick offline totally will distract you, and that's a sneaky way of landing that head kick. Now, the last way I'm going to talk about is one of my personal favorites, and that is off the exit attacks. When you're in the clinch and you're engaged and you're kneeing, the moment your opponent breaks from you, that is a great opportunity to strike. And I think one of the best opportunity to strikes, because when your opponent is exiting, things you're going to notice. One, they exit with their hands down because they feel they're safe at that time. So as soon as the hands come, they disengage from the clinch, the hands come down, all of a sudden they're thinking about which direction, then boom, they get smacked with a good high kick. So creating the kick off the exit, but even off the exit, attacking the leg, attacking the calf, hitting the body shots, all very important. I also talk about using this strategy against an unorthodox fighter. If the unorthodox fighter is going all over this by holding them, grabbing them, holding them tight, and then letting them disengage to kind of throw that kick, that is a way you can control your opponent, but that's the best way to sneak the head kick in. You do not see those big shots coming off of the exit. All right, so there you have it, 5 different ways to land sneaky kicks, and I'm going to call them sneaky because, one, they're sneaky because they're set up properly. All you have to do is really change the angle, change the rhythm, make things a little bit unorthodox. But remember, always have a good classic way of throwing things. There's a need for strong basics, but there's a need for you to adapt, to kind of get away, create variations off of the attack. The basic jab is good, but throw it on angles, throw it off different rhythms, throw it off tempos. The same thing has to be applied to your kicks. And it's a shame that a lot of martial artists and coaches focus on that with only hands. But with kick fighting, could be, a lot of people don't know how to deal with the kicks. So by changing these little things, making different variations, they're just going to land more effectively and hopefully lead to more knockouts, more exciting fights, and the growth of combat sports. So hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you use the description below to head to HAYABUSAFight.com. And check out their T3 boxing gloves, as they're my personal favorite, with the wrist and knuckle protection, as well as Perfect Sports Nutrition. Check out the description for 20% off using code Bazooka20. Bazookashop.com for the Bazooka merchandise. Hit the notification bell. Do all of those other things. Like, comment, share, and help me grow Bazooka Kickboxing and MMA. We'll see you next week. It might almost be better, like I just